Ready when you are, Chair Griswold.
I call this August 6, 2024 meeting to order and at 7 p.m. And please silence your cell phones, everybody. Next on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you please stand for the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is roll call. Mr. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Roll call for tonight's meeting. Hornseth.
Present.
Charbonneau. Here. Hubbard.
Here.
Allman.
Here.
Sullivan.
Here.
Verhey.
Here.
And Chair Griswold.
Here.
Okay, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is citizens' comments on any subject except those items scheduled for a public hearing. Those who have signed in will be given the first opportunity to speak. Time is limited to 3 minutes per speaker and 36 minutes total for this agenda item. Is anyone signed up to speak?
Nobody is signed in.
Would anyone in the audience wish to speak? Okay. Then we will move on to approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve and a second.
A motion to move for the agenda and the consent agenda.
All right.
A second.
Okay. Are there any changes to the agenda? Okay. Mr. Clerk, would you please take the roll call vote?
Voting on the approval of tonight's agenda and consent agenda. Verhey.
Yes.
Sullivan.
Yes.
Hubbard.
Yes.
Charbonneau.
Yes.
Hornseth.
Yes.
Allman.
Yes.
And Chair Griswold.
Yes.
Okay, your agenda and consent agenda have been approved, and approved on the consent agenda was the July 2nd, 2024 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is special orders, presentations, and reports. And we have no proclamations or awards. We do have a city administration report.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Happy to say for the first time since I started in February, and I think for over a year, we got a full commission. So excited to see all the faces around here. A couple things on our end. We are making some progress with the comprehensive plan update, and so the last few weeks we've been working on putting together some public engagement surveys, and so we'll be looking for feedback from the commission in the next couple of weeks. We might even put a section for the next work session on that, and so stay tuned. Also, in regards to other aspects of the city, so the Seward Community Library Museum was selected as one of 50 host sites nationwide for the Americans and the Holocaust Traveling Exhibition. And so this exhibition explores motives, pressures, and fears that shaped Americans' responses to Nazism, war, and genocide in Europe during the 30s and 40s. And so the library will be hosting this exhibition from August 27th through October 3rd. And they'll have public programs and field trips related to the exhibit, and the museum will also be hosting a World War II exhibition highlighting Alaska and Seward's role during this period. And so we encourage commission and public to check that out when it arrives later this month. And finally, if you remember from a work session previously, the Kenai Peninsula Borough is taking the lead on the hazard mitigation plan update that is including Seward, and they have their first draft that is now available for review. That's up on right now on their they have a website, and it's posted on the City of Seward's Facebook site right now. Are a couple ways that you can find that. And so just as a reminder, the borough decided to incorporate Seward into their multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan, and they attended a commission work session to get feedback from the commission and the public. And so I think up through September 1st is when Seward residents can provide their feedback to the plan up on their website. There's a link that is available for residents to review and also provide feedback for their first draft of that. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for administration?
Madam Chair, I do. Can you shoot each one of our commissioners the link to that? I was unaware of that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's it, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay.
I have
Oh, go ahead.
a question. If
Sure,
there was, I don't know if this is a good time to bring up, but I was looking back on some past minutes and there was something about training for the commissioners. Has there been any, I know that was looked at as a topic to spend our time on, but I wasn't sure if you got any further on that.
Sure, yeah, I think we kind of viewed the first step of that as updating the rules of procedure, kind of as a foundational piece, and so that will be, we'll mention it as we get to the work session topics coming up, but that'll kind of be the next work session, and then from there, I think we originally brainstormed possibly doing small trainings for each work session. I think the consensus of the commission was we could maybe sprinkle it in here and there, but if there's, online learning opportunities, to pass those along. And I know Courtney was able to find some actually upcoming training opportunities through the American Planning Association. So we're kind of compiling a list of training opportunities, and so, yeah, those will be forthcoming, but we'll start with the rules of procedure next work session.
Anyone else? Okay, let's move on to other reports and announcements. There are none. And the last one under special orders and presentations is presentations, and there are none. Moving on to the consent agenda, which was approved with the agenda and includes the preceding meeting minutes. Next is public hearings. The first and only public hearing is on the page. Resolution 2024-016. Mr. Clerk, would you please read that into the title, into the record?
Resolution 2024-016 of the Planning and Zoning Commission of the City of Seward, Alaska, recommending City Council amend Seward City Code 15.10.226, land uses allowed, to standardize language and clarify where marijuana establishments are allowed in each zoning district.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2024-016.
Second.
Go team. Thank you. Administration, do you have any comments?
Yeah, so we'll just walk through some of these changes real quickly, although we've discussed them at the last work session. On page 14 of the packet that's where the changes begin. And in the land uses allowed section before the table, marijuana establishments were outlined with the various regulations, and numbers 3 through 6 had the different types of marijuana establishments. So a cultivation facility, number 3, a marijuana testing facility, number 4, marijuana product manufacturing facility, number 5, and then a retail marijuana store, number 6. And so how code read or reads currently is, instead of putting these in the land uses allowed table, they wrote out in this section here that each of these marijuana establishments would be classified as certain uses that were already in the land uses allowed table. So what we've done to help clarify what code currently says is to strike the written verbiage and just put it in the land uses allowed table. So you'll see then on page 20 is where it's in the land uses allowed table. So the cultivation facility was classified as a greenhouse commercial, and so we just looked at greenhouse commercial in the land uses allowed table and where the zoning districts where that's allowed, and then put that for marijuana establishment cultivation facilities. So that's what we did for each of the items. You will notice on page 21 that we've further broken down a marijuana establishment retail store as just a retail store, or a retail store with on-site consumption indoor or on-site consumption outdoor. The reasoning for that breakdown was from our discussions, is that it would be easier in the future meetings to be able to further classify which zoning districts that use would be appropriate in, but showing it in the land use table now as an allowed use in those districts that a retail store is allowed, since on-site consumption is a part of a retail store as defined by the state statutes.
Thank you very much. I will now open the public hearing. Mr. Clerk, is anyone signed in to speak?
Nobody is signed in.
Would anyone in the audience wish to speak? Okay. I will now close the public hearing. Are there any comments from the commission?
Chair Griswold, I do have a question here, and I don't know if I need to make a motion on it or not. On the one where it's marijuana establishment testing facility itself, the title there, that's on page 21. And if I need to make a motion, let me know. But because as I was looking through this, just the title itself, in the Alaskan statute of 1738-900, there is no establishment. It's either a marijuana testing facility, and maybe it's just a clarification, and maybe you guys have talked about this already, nor in our own, from what I can tell, in our own code, it's 150155C. It's the same. It's marijuana testing facility. The establishment thing sort of threw me for a little bit of a loop, and I'm just trying to know if that's something I, missed because I wasn't at the work sessions. That's just a one-term establishment, and I didn't know, I was looking all over the place to see if that was a separate thing unto itself. It's not, and I was thinking maybe we should try to make them be sort of the same as the state and the definition in the city that they have for that already.
I would like to let administration respond to that.
Yeah, and so I think you mentioned 55C.
Yeah, 0155C.
I think we were just trying to match it to the verbiage in the definition. And so 55 itself is marijuana establishments, and A, B, C, and D are all under the umbrella of marijuana establishment. So that's why we worded it that way in the land use table. They all say marijuana establishment, and then we put in A,
Testing
B, C.
facility
Yeah.
and then from there, okay.
So, I
Yeah,
mean,
because that's when I'd like to match it up completely, so then maybe I just missed that part. I don't know if because the state doesn't have that, and then we were trying to match it up to meet what the state's requirement was. I just want to be sure that we have no confusion. So if you guys got that, good to go, that's fine. I'm fine with that.
I appreciate your
Thank you.
research. Comments? Anyone else? Commissioner Hubbard.
So I'm curious, under Chapter 15, 10-140, where in your clarification, you're trying to establish what we already had in our land use regulations. And under the retail marijuana store, there's nothing in there that says that on-site consumption is allowed. And so I just don't quite understand the process of, the state has an endorsement now, but they have to apply for that endorsement. There's a process, and we don't have anything in our regulations noting that. So how come by default we end up going into a marijuana on-site consumption?
Yeah, so,
Land use
sorry.
notation.
Yeah, so on page 15, it's stricken, but it shows the language that's currently in code, number 6. So in this title, a retail marijuana store meeting all other criteria in this code, so that would be Title 15, and in Alaska statutes and administrative codes, is classified as business, retail, sales, and service use. So since
It's on page what? I'm sorry.
page 15 of the packet,
Okay.
so you have our code, which basically is just showing where a retail marijuana store is allowed, which zoning districts. Then you also have the requirements in the Alaska State Statutes and Administrative Code. And so that's where Alaska State Statute and Administrative Code has on-site consumption as an allowed use in a retail store. It's part of a retail store. So that's why the on-site consumption is allowed in a retail store. And retail stores in our code are allowed in office, residential, auto, commercial, central business, and Harbor Commercial.
Does that answer your question?
So it just because we have it noted as code in Alaska statutes and administrative codes. That's what framed it.
Right.
Chair Griswold?
Yes.
So my question is, so we're falling, everything originally is falling up underneath the Alaska statute and the AAC, so we're trying to mirror those completely. Is that my understanding? Mirror what they, their definitions, what they have written up for, whether it's a retail establishment, so by default, if it's a retail establishment, they can consume it on the premise. Is that what that means? Oh, that's just a given? We don't have to give them any separate, qualifiers? Is that, so we're just gonna go with what the state says?
Right, so, yeah.
I just wanted to be sure I understood that as well.
Commissioner-
was-
Oh, can I,
Go ahead.
a little crosstalk here, Commissioner Sullivan, that is the problem though, and that's why we need to decide as a commission if that's something, that we're gonna, in future work sessions, is trying to discern if that's really what we wanna do.
Right, that's what I'm saying, we
And-
establish a
So I don't
baseline.
think we should necessarily say that, yeah, we want to mirror that as much as that's kind of where we're at today, given the language, but I guess I'm still bothered by the fact that it came in 2019, the endorsement really doesn't get any momentum until recently, and we're kind of stuck with it. And there's no, even though it doesn't, I guess, that wasn't the intent when we followed that, or using that definition.
Sure, and I think that...
It's like comes in later, and so...
No, and I think that was sentiments that were provided at previous work sessions on this topic, and I think that's why this was step one of looking into it, is how can we clarify code? So, because right now, if you wanted to change anything regarding on-site consumption, the way our code is written, you'd have to change all of, what was it, retail sales and service use, because it's not separated out. And so this allows the land use table to separate out marijuana establishments from their umbrella land uses that is currently in code. And furthermore, the on-site consumption is, we're pulling that out of the umbrella of marijuana retail stores. So in future work sessions and meetings, if the commission wants to change the land use of, let's say, on-site consumption indoor, then you have that ability, versus if it's left the way it is, you don't have that ability in the land use table currently.
How would it be if it's left as it is? You'd have to change retail store, and it's hard to even clarify what you're changing, right?
Right, because the current use falls under business retail sales and service use. That's the umbrella on the land use table.
Chair Griswold, can I just, so what you are asking is, or what you're asking is, what you're saying is, by putting these separate classifications in the land use table here that are very specific, then it gives the commission and the council the opportunity to either place more restrictions if they feel that they need to, whereas in the old way, in the paragraphs 3 through 6 that you had before, you were restricted because retail sales is a very broad category, and that fell into that, and you had to allow certain things to occur. But with the separate categories that you have here, I can see what you're doing is allowing discussion on each individual area.
Right.
And we can make that decision if we want to have under a retail store on-site consumption or not, I guess. I mean, again, I wasn't part of your prior work sessions, but, that's what tells me that, you're sort of carving out specific niches so you can address each one of the unique areas. And again, this will have to obviously go to council, and
Correct.
they'll have to green light it too if that were the case. But I see what you're saying.
And I think when you get into those conversations, you're probably going to have spirited discussions on both sides. And so that's why we strictly wanted this meeting to focus on keeping code the same. Nothing changes about what is
Okay,
in
get it.
code. We're just laying it out differently.
A baseline. If I understand a baseline to
Yep.
reflect that, and then we can go from there.
That makes sense.
Mr. Clerk, Do we have a motion on the floor to approve this amendment, to approve this resolution?
Yes, you
You do, okay, good. All right, so we're still discussing that. So, as administration pointed out, this resolution, as in the title, standardizes the language and clarifies where marijuana establishments are allowed in each zoning district now. So nothing's added, nothing's changed. The consumption on site is a clarification of that endorsement, that it's allowed with a retail store. And so this is the first step in addressing our current marijuana establishment code. And we're hoping, and the public requested further steps to discuss changes.
So we will have some more discussions on this once we establish this baseline, as these things are
Right.
inserted into the table, then we can decide what we can do with each one of these things.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right. So we're recommending to council that we make this code change so everything is much better organized. And then hopefully they'll say, yes, this is a much better arrangement of our current code. And then they'll hopefully come back to us to take that second step to address any changes.
Any concerns?
that-
For just for my clarification, Chair Griswold, does the council have to direct us to do this, or can we do that ourselves for the code? Or does that have to be a big?
Like to continue the
Yeah,
conversation?
they say
We're
we
already
approve this, they
directed.
approve, then they approve what this thing is. We send it to, and so do they have to tell us to look at it again, or can we,
We're in charge of changes to
on that,
Title 15.
on that part? Okay,
Mhm.
on that part?
That's one of our priorities, come down from council. And so we already are authorized to work with this code in the public.
Okay, good.
And we've, I think, been on the record in previous either meetings or work sessions that there'll be another work session in the fall when hopefully there's more public engagement after the busy summer season.
Right.
Yeah, this change will help facilitate that discussion, make it easier to talk about it, make it clear.
Yeah, breaks everything up so we can talk about things individually
Yeah,
instead of having to change one huge section of code.
that makes perfect sense.
Any other comments? Mr. Clerk, let's call the roll.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2024-016, Verge,
Yes.
Morissette,
Yes.
Sullivan,
Yes,
Almond,
Yes.
Hubbard,
Yes.
Charbonneau,
Yes.
and Chair Griswold.
Yes.
Okay, that resolution has been approved.
Next on the agenda is unfinished business. We have none. Next on the agenda is new business. We have no resolutions, but we do have other new business, and that is to discuss the work session topics for the next work session. Administration.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And yeah, with this being the last kind of summer work session and some other kind of important issues, continuing this conversation, housing on the docket for fall, we kind of wanted to wrap up a few things. And so our current plan is to see if we can put a bow on any of the sign code updates that have been discussed long before I even started here. I'd like to get out the rules of procedure document, which, for clarification for you, Claire, I don't know if you even saw this when you were on the commission, but for me starting, this was kind of a new environment for me to work in. And so it was important for me to get like just a foundational understanding of how things work and when I can speak and not speak in meetings. And working with the city clerk, he found an old planning and zoning rules of procedure document that kind of outlined those
from
things.
Claire,
Oh, was it from you? Oh, yeah, so you know exactly what it is. And so that was a 2008 document that was last amended a decade ago in 2014. And so that helped me, going through that has helped me learn in my new role. And so we didn't even have a Word document of it. It was just a PDF. And so I've kind of gone through, and some of the code references had changed over time, and it had a different look than the city council rules of procedures. And so I have a first draft put together that kind of mimics more what city council's rules of procedures look like, and organized it a little better so some of the items kind of go in order of what's on the agenda order. And so, and so I'd like to get your eyes on that, and and get feedback on that. And then I think we might be in a spot to bring the comprehensive plan and public engagement surveys for the next work session too. And so those 3 items would be for August.
So to summarize, it would be sign code update, the rules of procedure, and the comprehensive plan public survey format.
Yes, and administration, city manager's office has also reached out to us. I'm not sure where we'll put it, because I know we got a busy agenda, but they do want to come to the commission, similar to how they did the new fire station location work session discussion. They want to do the same for the new police station. And so that will be at some meeting. We might do a double header if that's a shorter one at some point this fall.
Okay. What are the wishes of the commission? Does that sound like a good work session lineup? That's good.
It's
Okay.
ambitious too.
It is very ambitious.
Keep chipping away at it.
Yep,
Yeah, chip
exactly.
away, yep.
Chip away. Yeah, okay. That's what direction you need.
Great, yep.
Okay. And next on the agenda is informational items and reports. So the meetings that we have coming up, the next work session will be on, do you have it? That's got too many things. August 20th at 6 PM, but it's in the community library because there happens to be an election going on. And are all the commissioners planning to be here for that date? Great. Okay. Okay.
In the past, when we've had meetings at the library, it's in the room on the first floor, but the Holocaust exhibit, right, will be there, so we will be having it in one of the rooms upstairs.
Okay. Cool. Thanks for that clarification.
So, is that on housing?
No, that will be on the topics we just discussed.
The sign code update, the rules of procedure, and
Oh,
comp
okay.
plan survey format.
Yeah, tentatively, the September work session, we're gearing up for a big housing conversation. That's the date. We got Nicole Lawrence to come give her presentation, and we've got a few more, items to bring up for that one too, so.
Okay.
Is that, also I do want to add, this will be more housekeeping, I believe, but just in the resolution that we did approve, we did accidentally put out of alphabetical order marijuana establishments in front of manufacturing, and so we'll,
Oh.
and speaking with the city clerk, we can just amend that when we pass it on to council, so just
Good catch.
FYI.
So once this goes through council, then we pick it up again with more work sessions and...
Mhm.
Okay. Are we on the topic of housing, the regular meeting? Is that coming up on September 3rd?
The September,
That's just a regular meeting, but...
the September work session, which is
Oh,
the
okay.
17th, I believe.
Yeah. So I understand that council is also doing something on housing, and would it behoove us to try to collaborate together on that, so we're not double doing and,
From
we're
what I
not seeking
underst-
the same information?
From what I understand, their conversations are regarding Title 8, or what's the utilities?
Title 14.
Title 14, and the whole forest acres and whether or not, I think wells and septic should be allowed, so that's not under the jurisdiction of Planning and Zoning Commission, and so we're kind of going to tackle housing from the areas that we can tackle under Title 15 and 16, and then they'll be discussing Title 14.
And then our next regular meeting will be on Tuesday, September 3rd at 7 PM in council chambers. And I hope that everyone can plan to attend. Okay, next on our agenda is citizens' comments. Would any citizens wish to speak? No? Okay, no comment. And next is commission and administration comments. Let's start with Rhonda. Any
Oh,
comments?
Well, let me see here. What do I want to talk about? I have been getting some feedback on the mural, the walkable mural that had just gone in, and I went back and looked at the guidelines and went back through the minutes and when that all came about and this body being tasked with creating those guidelines, and I found some things in there that I thought maybe at some point we should address as a city. One of them mainly is there's several other crosswalks that are allowed to be muralized, if you will, and I wonder, there's no limit on who can muralize those and how they could be muralized, and I just was thinking that we might want to revisit that, and then also revisit the fact of use of logos or symbolisms or whatever in our crosswalks around town and who and what they represent. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up since I've been getting a lot of public feedback from some of my constituents and people I know. Otherwise, I applaud staff for clarifying our land use for marijuana establishments, and look forward to working with everybody on tackling that, and encourage community involvement as well, and more meetings to come. So thank you.
Vanessa?
Yeah, welcome back, Claire. It's really exciting to have a full commission, and as always, thank you, staff. Appreciate everyone's input. Good meeting.
Brendan?
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming, and our sole member of the public, always appreciated. And just, I'm gonna do my own soapbox here, I guess. Just looking at the reminder of meetings, we talked about this once, but we still have this 6 versus 7, and I don't know, since we have a very full group now, if there's a time that works better, maybe we could talk about it and standardize them, unless they are better to be separate for some reason, 6 and 7. But
All the time.
for our meetings, it's kind of weird. But, yeah, so that's it for me.
That's the way it has always been.
Well,
It makes you wonder why it's such a
Upstart.
rush to get
He's
to
an upstart.
6. Mr. Clerk, how would we go about changing the meeting time for the work session to 7?
I believe you can call the work session at any time you want, but the meetings shall be at 7 according to city code. This came up a couple of years ago. I think they looked into changing it, and it seemed like the direction was, the preference was for 6 p.m. start times for both, but it kind of fizzled out. I don't know, I'd have to go back and look at some meeting minutes, but you could certainly take another try at it.
So it wouldn't require a code change, for example, it's just up to the commission?
Well, for the work session times, if you wanted to make those at 7, but I think there was some, from what I remember, there was some grumbling about that because 6 was the preferred time, so to put both at 7 was not considered a win, even though it standardized the time. It was not as desirable as having at least one of the meetings still be at 6.
Did any of it have to do with doing a double header at times, where they would have a work session and a meeting? Didn't that occur a couple times?
We have done that before.
I mean, we've done a couple since I've started, where we start at 5:30 and then go to 7, but I think the clerk is right, yeah, it's 7 p.m. is the code, so we'd have to change code if you wanted to change the meeting time. Otherwise, if you want to change the work session, that would be an opportunity in our rules of procedure discussion, because that is in there we can have that conversation at the next work session.
So changing the work session time is not a code change?
So I'd have to research that just to make sure. I can't remember if code called for the second meeting to be the work session at 6 p.m.
Okay, yeah.
So I have to look into that and get back to you. So I don't give out the wrong information.
Okay, thank you. Caught you on the spot. But it is something for the commission to think about. I haven't thought about it because it's always been that way, but it might be time to discuss it, to see if we'd like to change that. Thanks for bringing that up. Commissioner Charbonneau.
Like always, I want to thank administration for all their hard work. I do want to respond to Commissioner Hubbard's comments. I do believe when we made that application, you should look back through it, but I remember going through it, and I do believe it says that there's, for the walkable murals, no symbols, no writing, and the colors can't be the same as traffic signs. So it basically just leaves it to art and color. No actual symbols of any kind. Or logos, that's also in there. So, anyway. Most of that's all we do.
The traffic sign colors are there, it's just had to do with some automated, the way they put the wording, it's still useful.
That's it.
Thank you. Commissioner Ullman?
Yeah, welcome back, Claire.
Thank you.
It's good to have everybody here, and thank you, administration, for always setting us up well. I don't know, just on the 6 versus 7 o'clock, like we are doing bigger work sessions, right, with more topics, which I do support, because like we've touched on this, there's only 12, and just to get, those are really valuable, to really talk as much as we can when we do get us all together. So maybe that's why 6 o'clock works well, like we have been going longer. So if we were to start at 7 with the work session, we'd be getting into the later hours, especially in winter, you know, where it's even later relative. So just something, I mean, yeah, we'll have that discussion, but thank you.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, well, great. Thank you for welcoming back, everybody. I enjoyed being back. I really, really enjoyed doing this, hence why I've come back. But I had a lot of stuff I had to get taken care of, and I don't like, hedging one thing and try to do the other, because then you can't do either one of them very well. So I'm glad that the council and the commission was willing to have me back. I'll do my best to continue to be productive. I want to thank administration for all their hard work and putting up with all of us, educating all of us all the time, and of course the clerk's office that has to keep herd all these cats that we have here in trying to get things done. And I also do think it's very good to revisit some of the things that have been out there, whether it's the walkable murals that Commissioner Hubbard brought up. If there's issues and clarifications on that, maybe they do need to look at. I know that's the thing that goes on in the Community Development Office primarily, and they execute what the council has approved. But a balance would be good, because if there are a bunch of murals out there, maybe we need to have to decide what kind of murals you're going to have. Are you going to have fish? Are you going to have, mountains or something like this? I think you need a balance, just like the comprehensive plan, if you want to call it that. Every little part of Seward has got to have a thing. You have your business side, you have your historic side, you have your tourism side. You can't go one direction or the other too much, otherwise you have an unbalanced community. So anyway, glad to be back. The band's back together.
And you obviously need no encouragement, no prompting. You are in.
Okay.
You're making motions.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it.
It's awesome. You just jumped right in. That's really great. Well, I appreciate the reminder about this hazard mitigation plan, and one of the main topics in that plan is flooding, and it's very appropriate. The wind and the rain is lashing against these windows. You hear that? And the waterfall is impressively dark, and you can hear boulders and gravel and rock just surging over that cliff. And the little bulldozer is in the river, and he's pushing gravel, making his channel, and the excavator's pulling it out of the pool. It's the same, and it's really impressive, the power of nature. And so when you have time, if the road is still open, go see. And be sure that we're well covered in this plan, because we do this every year. It's very exciting, and we have 4 more inches of rain on the way. So we are living it. We are living this hazardous mitigation plan. Unfortunately, there are plans to make that not happen in a few years, which would be pretty impressive to open all works. So I appreciate everyone being here, administration, city clerk, and the audience. And with that,
Just one last comment from the
Yes.
clerk, if I may.
yes.
So I looked up city code on the meeting schedules, and it says regular meetings shall be held at 7 p.m. in the city council chambers on the first Tuesday of each month. It does not go into detail about the work sessions, so if you wanted to standardize the times, you could call for the work sessions at 7 p.m. But then, like I was saying, what I remembered from the last time this was brought up is that wasn't desirable because people would rather have the earlier start for the work sessions, even though it was a kind of a confusing, mixture of times.
And as we change work session times, like 5:30, it just has to be publicly noticed in time.
But that's not to say that you couldn't change your regular meeting to start at 6 PM, but it would be an ordinance before council. So if that's something you want to pursue, that would be
Okay.
the route.
Thank you for that research. Okay, with that, I adjourn the meeting at 7:40.